introduce herself in a minute. And we're also expecting a community member from the West Side Coalition, and that's Jeff Olson. He's part of the Fair Park Community Council and West Side Coalition. But we asked for this media time to talk to you all about 3 bills that we're both sponsoring with both Representative Hollins and myself. These are key bills related to the announcement that was made on the proposed location for a state homeless campus. And we are literally in the middle of a session, and we're discussing budget items, many budget items, more than 1,500 bills. But this is something that's still lingering in our community of this potential 1,300 bed facility on the west side of Salt Lake City. And it's something that's been a concern for our constituents from the moment it was announced by the board, state homeless board, and we have heard a lot of concerns from our constituents. We've had multiple meetings as legislators with many of our leaders, and we came up with this 3 pieces of legislation that we'll discuss. One of the first things we want to be very clear about is we recognize there's a need for more services related to individuals experiencing homelessness and unsheltered families and individuals. We want to make sure that resources are being put into those needs, but we don't think that a 1,300 bed facility is the answer. So we are here to say, if by any situation that moves forward, we do have some bills that will be addressing impact on the actual services that will be provided to those individuals that will be part of this facility, but also the communities, the neighboring communities that could be potentially impacted. So for us, the conversation is, as we discuss potentially funding of any, not only programs and services that we want to see funded, but if it's going to go for construction of this gigantic facility, we have a lot of concerns, and that's why we're here. So with that, I do want to invite Mr. Jeff Olson, Fair Park Community Council Chair and member of the West Side Coalition Board of Directors, so he can bring the community perspective and why we're here today. Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Sandra. So West Side is a wonderful place to live. We have a great community. We have wonderful people. It does have some challenges. And over time, it's been too easy in many ways for our state and others to place facilities that are needed, but that can be a challenge to a community, to place them on the west side, such as the prison, such as the inland port, and now the prospect of a facility for a large number of people who are experiencing the challenges of being unsheltered, being out there. We recognize the need to help people who are facing those challenges. I know so many of them personally, and I know ones who have died as a consequence of being out there. And we know that many of them suffer in difficult ways. I was talking recently to the director of a rehab facility who told me about who had been out there unsheltered, and who told me how really difficult that is, what a difficult life, and how the first few nights you want to just take enough drugs to keep you awake all the time because you're afraid that somebody is going to steal your things while you're asleep, or they're going to attack you, and that most of them have to come up with one way or another of sort of protecting themselves. And so we are really concerned about them and all of the efforts that we can do to try to help them to get on and really have good lives and recover from those challenges as much as they can, we ought to do. But I've also become very aware of how difficult it is for many people who live in the neighborhoods where there are people who are unsheltered. Because people are unsheltered, often they'll have needs like they need substances because of their addictions, and they have no way of coming up with the money to buy them beyond perhaps some welfare payment or something, and usually that's not enough. So they have to get that money somehow, and typically the only thing available to them is to commit crimes of survival, to take something, from a car or a yard or a garage or a store or whatever, and or to commit prostitution. And then there are crime gangs that prey on that, who use them to deal the drugs, who use them to, anyhow, a lot of issues and challenges. And so we need to protect the neighborhoods as well as protecting the people. And we need to have, if we need a facility like the one, we need to be sure it's done right so that it really does benefit people who need it and isn't a problem for the community in which it's located. And we're grateful very much for our senator and representative who are seeking to make sure that if this is done, that it's done right.
Thank you. I am Sandra, Representative Sandra Hollins, District 21 is the district I represent. So, as Mr. Olson said, the community has a lot of concerns right now. And part of their concerns is not knowing what's going on. They feel that they were kind of blindsided by this shelter moving into this district, and they weren't a part of the process. So in response to that, we have SB 246 and the Utah Homeless Service Board amendments. And what this would do is this will add a representative to the Utah's Homeless Service Board. And this person will be appointed by the West Side Coalition. So if we want to have solutions, we're going to have to include the community. And we feel that this is a way that the community will have a voice, and they will be able to get information and work as a liaison between the community and the board, and this will offer more transparency for us. As was stated, we are not a not in my backyard community. The West Side has been open and willing to take on, but right now, as was I heard someone say, our backyard is full. We have taken on a lot, willingly taken on a lot. And so we feel that having someone on this board will help facilitate conversation, but also will provide transparency.
And just to end, I'll mention the other two bills. So like I said, is 3 pieces of legislation. The second one is SB 239. This is a state homeless campus amendments. And on this one, what we're trying to do is create almost like it's a trigger law. And what we're doing is making sure that there are specific requirements in statute of what it means to operate a homeless service campus. And that when things don't go the way they're supposed to, those communities, including the individuals that will be part of this campus, could be protected. And there will be a whole process in place that will be created in statute to make sure that the homeless service ombudsman individual can review, begin investigation. They will have to be a response if things are not working. All of this related to criminal justice assistance and employment support, behavioral and mental health services, making sure that transportation requirements are being met, and that there is enough protection also for the community. When we talk about that public safety and criminal justice, we want to make sure everyone in that neighborhood is safe. So this bill will make sure that there's an investigation if complaints come in, and there'll be a mechanism and a process, if needed, to take action related to this campus if it needs to be closed until they figure out what's happening. I mean, we need to have plans in place to prevent what happened in Rio Grande, right? Because we certainly don't want to duplicate an experience that was not that long ago that put the entire state in alert and was very, very traumatic. So our goal is to protect both the individuals that need the services, but also the communities. The other bill is SB 279. That's a state homeless campus neighbor tax credit. And then this bill, it says, look, if there's going to be this level of homeless campus facility being built, that the neighbors in that community, it's a radius of 1 mile, will get, create a non-refundable income tax credit for taxpayers, that own property in that area. And again, it's just to mitigate the impact. We recognize it's going to require everyone to address the issue of individuals experiencing homelessness. These are families, these are our neighbors, these are our friends, these are people we know and we care. Most of them are from Utah, so they are our community, but we need to do it in a responsible way. Our goal is that there is also enough support and resources for real mental health and substance abuse services, and we cannot set up people for failure. And so that's what we wanted to chat. We want to open it for questions, but we want to make sure we explain why there's a community component. We all are here. We're talking right now about the west side, but in the future it could be another area. So these bills will apply moving forward if campuses like this are in any program or idea of creating them. We will also just mention there was a bill presented, I believe, last week, HB 523, Homeless Services Land Use Amendments by Representative and Majority Leader Casey Snyder, and we love the bill. I think capping to 300 is an adequate facility size that we've been using in the Spoken Hub approach of saying we all want to be part of the solution. We shouldn't have facilities of 1,300 beds. That just sounds like we're housing humans. And that's, to me, not the right approach. Those individuals deserve to be treated with respect and integrity as well. And with that, we're open for questions. Guys?
Do your bills have any support from Republican leadership, or do you think they'll have a chance this year?
Yeah, so we will be in committee. We've been assigned to committee. We'll have a fair, I think, opportunity in the Senate. All of them are Senate bills, so I find it's interesting, right? We all do strategy also as we're running legislation, but I'll say that I think it's important to raise the awareness, to have the conversation. We are accountable to our constituents, and this was something that was a top priority for them. I hope my colleagues recognize that this could be their districts in a year or two, and having guidelines that require measurable outcomes and also a trigger component that if things are not being met correctly, again, we don't want to repeat Rio Grande again. Any other questions?
If the campus, does go ahead, do you believe these bills, these suite of bills, can help it run effectively and help homeless Utah? I
think it definitely will change the way we, operate this type of facilities. And as you can see, there's an office, and I know, Representative Clancy will be moving into the position of being the coordinator or director, I think, of that office. I want to make sure I get his title correct. So if you guys want to check on that, I don't want to get his title, wrong. But, I'm glad we're, having, currently was former President Niederhauser. These are great people that want to do great things, but you do need, I think, statutory authority to make sure that we can intervene faster. And as legislators, we just hear sometimes where things are not happening, but the oversight is convoluted. I think these bills will give a better framework to at least make sure that we can react faster if things are not operating correctly.
So since it's not clear yet if there will be any funding for the campus this year, if any, and if they do, it sounds like it's more likely to be something to be worked on for multiple years. So is that your thought behind these bills to, open the conversation now, even if they don't pass this year, or maybe they do, who knows, but what are your thoughts of filing these bills this year, knowing that the reality of a full 1,300 bed campus is far off at this point?
Yeah, and that's a great conversation, and I appreciate you clearly have a very clear understanding of how things work in the legislature. The reality is, for our constituents, all they hear is, this is coming, right? And we have 45 days to potentially now make it official through funding, because at the end of the day, it's not going to happen if we don't build something like that. It's a $300 million at least, conversation. That's without the programs and services. You're talking about $60 to $70 million minimum for an operation yearly. And so you're right. I think the way, I serve on the Executive Appropriations Committee, and I'm thinking there's no funding. I mean, I'm in social services. I keep on looking at her because she was with me in social services for like 10 years. But, the reality is there's not funds, but anything could happen. I mean, nothing is a done deal in the legislature until the last minute. So for us, our responsibility is to be responsive to our constituents and to make sure we put the framework. But to your point, if things do not, go as some of them had planned to actually have this facility, again, I hope this will provide a mechanism moving forward to better policy when it comes to this type of facilities.
Is there one of these three bills that you see as like most critical moving forward?
Yeah, I believe the trigger one, that's SB 239, to me is the one that puts a lot of protections from, the public always want to know, what do I do if things are falling apart? Who is accountable? And here's the tricky part. You have the way it's structured, you have an advisory board that makes these decisions and recommendations. The legislature funds those recommendations, right? We have the power of the purse, and we engage on the funding, but then you have subcontractors also providing the actual services, whether it's the operation of a facility that large to the actual mental behavioral health services. And then you have city and county, which play a gigantic role because all of our mental behavioral services are at the local health department. So when you have that much of organizations and entities coordinating a service this complex, I want statutory protection. So to me, 239 probably, and I don't know if you have a different opinion, that SB 239 will be the biggest one that will give at least a peace of mind to the public and to the individuals that potentially could end up in that facility. Right? I mean, unless you want to add anything.
Sure. And I think adding representation from our community, I think, is very important. It's not new because we did the same thing when with the development of North Temple. We made sure that someone from the West Side Coalition sits on that board to be able to represent the best interest of the community. And this is the same thing. We want to make sure that the community is well represented and that there's as much transparency as we can provide in policy.
What are your thoughts? I know you acknowledged this kind of in your earlier statements, but you acknowledged there's a need for more capacity in the state's homeless system. And so like Mayor Ehrman and Hall has been saying for years that there needs to be more emergency shelter beds. If not a 1,300 bed campus, what do you think the state should do instead?
And I think there are multiple proposals that we're supporting, all funding going to, increasing for the emergency ones, right? Now, we've been, in a way, in the midst of a crisis for our tourism industry and the fact that we didn't have any snow, and that has a lot of terrible things that the state has been facing. The fact that it hasn't been so cold has also allowed for people, has saved lives of many of these individuals. And so I think we haven't seen that huge emergency because it hasn't been so cold, but the reality is we do need more beds. What you're seeing, and I really appreciate this, is bipartisan by all means, is responding to the way you see a lot of legislation happening is we're responding to the ones that we can immediately tackle, and those are families that are one paycheck away from homelessness. And we are seeing more legislation trying to protect them. The food security infrastructure that we're building, and we are saying, let's invest in food security. People are making decisions between I pay rent or milk for my children. It's that, the situation is that critical. So we're seeing more in terms of those emergency shelters. I think we need to support them. We also need to continue to work with the current ones in terms of their programs and services. So we're seeing more access. Our Mental Behavioral Health Commission has brought some recommendations that we funded through social services. So EAC will be, kind of like making sure we come with the final budget on those services. And I think the state is moving the needle. We need to do more, but certainly it looks like we're going to move the needle in those areas.
You said that this is going to provide some protections for the community if things go awry. Can you give us some examples on how those protections will be implemented or what that actually looks like?
So in the bill, there is a timelines of, so if complaints are coming in for a public safety issue, so let's say neighbors to start complaining or even individuals that are inside the facilities are, they're saying public safety issues. And again, if you follow the Rio Grande operation component and some of the stuff that we learned through some of those audits, those are real issues. Those type of issues, what we're trying to prevent, that at least they'll have timelines in statute that have to be met in terms of fixing the problem or making decisions then to close the place or, take over. I mean, like someone has to have a process for solutions of those issues. So public safety is one of them. The other one is a level of servicing on mental behavioral services for those individuals inside. So now they're going to be on through our homelessness ombudsman person liaison, which we created a couple of years ago. By that we meaning the legislature, so it was not my bill, but we supported it. Now we will be able to, talk to the community and educate the public and individuals in those facilities how to use the ombudsman for purposes of protecting themselves as well. So the way I see it is now we're putting a framework on what are the steps to get you to have an intervention and potentially, if needed, even shut down a facility if things are not going the way they're supposed to.
We've talked a lot about funding already today, and it's obviously been a hot topic here. More broadly, what still needs to happen for this campus to come online, especially from that money perspective? You said $300 million. The President Niederhauser said different things when he first announced the campus. Where does that all stand?
We actually had the good, and I call him president because he's always going to be president for me as we serve together his time here. We had this conversation and the community was very engaged. I mean, construction expenses are super high. We are addressing right now an expansion on the state prison, which end up costing, $500 million. I mean, like building in that location, it's a really bad deal, period. You are very close to water. I mean, the prison is already having problems in terms of that construction. And so you have a mosquito abatement issue as well. And that is literally next to the mosquito abatement district offices. I mean, there's just a lot of pieces that may not be part of conversations when you're thinking of building somewhere else that are unique to that northwest quadrant. So to me, 1,300 bed facility, if the state prison is 3,000 and it costs us that amount of money, I mean, I'm just thinking, again, I'm not a builder, so I don't own a building construction company, so I'm not an expert, but enough to know that you're in the hundreds of millions. But the other portion that we want to raise awareness is how much are we going to spend on the operation of that facility with adequate access to programs and services? Because if not, then it's warehousing people. And I think all of us collectively disagree with that type of policy. We want to make sure that it's ongoing for the type of programs and services. And you've worked on that field, representative, as a social worker. You know those programs and services. Right now, we're not adequately funding. So, how are we going to make sure that happens? We are hearing between 70 to 100 million ongoing for operations. I don't know if you want to add anything. No, I think perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.